In food news, we are elated to state that the cheese does not stand alone. Bolstered by our galvanizing actions here on this revolutionary podcast, other Taco Bell-loving corners of the internet have joined their voices to ours to echo the frustration. And presently, the Taco Bell subreddit, r/Taco Bell, has been set to private in protest of the decision to remove the Mexican pizza, and, quote-unquote, will remain locked until Taco Bell reverses their decision. I wish I were lying.
Wait.
But if you wanted honesty, you have come to the wrong place.
Here's something to think about. When you drink alcohol, your liver deteriorates. And after that, you're gonna be a dialysis.
Ooh, I love it. Time to whip it out and start cooking.
The power of the mic compels you.
Much like cock, I need one. And at this point, you can smell the Caucasian through your speakers.
You're screamed and I screamed. I think I missed half of the references, but I understood the point.
Dim-witted dunderfuck. This is the Disinformed podcast. I am Shane.
I'm John.
And I'm Michael.
Guys, we started a movement.
We have, and the movement normally started by Taco Bell. We have to keep, closeted in a bathroom somewhere, but this is a different sort of movement.
Yeah, Michael, did you find, or well, one, that wasn't bullshit?
No, the subreddit r/Taco Bell is private.
So if I go to Taco Bell,
it is not accessible.
Oh god, Taco Hell.
And furthermore, whilst John is perusing this, Mashed.com has actually provided us with a recipe for making the Mexican pizza yourself at home to help aid in protest and to starve Taco Bell's coffers even further. And so we're going to provide that recipe to you all today in the show notes. So down below, you will see Mashed.com's particular Mexican pizza recipe, and it's delicious. I don't mind telling you.
I never thought I'd be on Taco Bell's subreddit. And it is just as depressing inside of this subreddit as it is inside of their restaurant. Wow. It's not private, by the way. You got me.
I mean, when do I... According to the site that I looked at previously, they claimed that, these Redditors were, fighting it.
It may have happened, but all I saw was a sad picture of a chalupa.
You may be looking in the wrong subreddit, my friend.
Grandma's baking pies?
Yes.
Which, by the way, if you want some holiday cheer, you can go check that one out.
I think it's actually the r/soft bake, I think, is what we're looking for now.
But Michael, you found an article that we did catch on, and that there is a restaurant in Austin that is starting to do exclusively removed objects from Taco Bell's menu, right?
Yep, it's a bar in Austin. Will host pop-up events where they will be selling their take on the Mexican pizza and 7-layer burritos.
Fuck yeah.
Under the name Taco Fuego, beginning, actually, the day of recording.
Okay.
I have actually seen a Taco Fuego installation.
Oh.
Where?
Wait a minute. That was after you...
I have been in Austin, Texas previously.
Oh.
And I'm fairly certain that this exists now. Granted, I think there's also a different subset of like a Taco Cabeza or something similar to steal from the Breaking Bad vibes here.
Okay.
But there was another very famed chain in Texas that exists as well. But I'm fairly certain I saw a Taco Fuego somewhere.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first, or last, or somewhere in between. But I think we've done what we set out to do, gentlemen. We started this almost a month ago, and it's been like any active movement. Like it's been trying. There's been ups, there's been downs. Usually ups. Because we're fighting for a good cause. But thank you for listening to our words of caution, Taco Fuego. You're welcome.
I mean, let's stick with the exaltation here, because we do want to take a moment to just let all of this soak in, and we did claim the revolution would not be televised. but by God, it was podcasted.
It was. They're probably going to make a teledoc about this.
We're doing it right now, as a matter of stern fact. I'm going to
Yeah.
save all these
I
Zoom
want like
files.
a mockumentary. Who do you think would play you in the mockumentary?
I mean, there's any number of women who've managed it thus far, but...
Ooh.
Oh, I mean, different context. Sorry.
No, we're not talking
Is
about...
Meatloaf still taking phone calls?
You say Meatloaf?
Yes.
All right, Bob.
I want him to look just as he did in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
If I've... I'm not going to say that joke. Never mind. I was gonna...
I mean, now you've teased the audience.
Yeah,
so
you can't
You've broken the
not.
cardinal rule of podcasting. Can't say, oh, I'm not going to say it.
I was trying to think who would play me, and it was just like insert normal actor's name, but if they were kind of not all there, like maybe if they had a stroke and like the left half of their face was drooped down, like Ryan Gosling after 2 strokes.
I thought you were... he usually gets up to 69, if you'll recall. I thought you were going to say like Leonardo DiCaprio and What's Eating Gilbert Grape will reprise his role.
Oh, speaking of reprising roles, did you guys see the amazing news from the Marvel Universe?
Regale me.
About the Spider-Man 3 casting?
Oh, aren't
For-
all 3 of them rumored to be
there is strong multiverse vibes getting thrown out there because Doc Ock is coming back, or what's his name? Alfred
Molina.
Yeah, he's coming back to play Doc Ock, and there are rumors and a buzz that, Dunst is coming back, like, is cast in.
Stop
Interesting.
trying to talk me out of this movie.
Andrew Garfield is cast, or at least rumored to be cast, and Tobey Maguire is in talks to be cast. Which is essentially them being like, yes, there's going to be just a multiverse fuckery of a movie coming up, and I would see it. Only because I know that since it's the 3rd Spider-Man in the installment, it has to be the last one because Spider-Man won't exist past 3 standalone installments, if history's proven anything.
Well, I
True.
don't need Dustin Diamond's sleepy cousin to come back as Spider-Man to get me riveted and prepared for another installment. I'm just not...
There's going to be a director's cut where it's just 2 MJs giving BJs.
All right. Well, you just lucked out, Tiger. Can I just say
Can you
that
imagine
I
that spit roast?
I'm not sure I want to.
Oh, God.
I haven't seen this many tears since Korea. I have to say, I'm walking into this podcast with a bit of a heavy heart, in spite of the fact that we have the elation that is our victory against Taco Bell.
Oh, no. What
Slow though
happened?
steady though it may be. I'm going to speak ill of our Lord and Savior. I just finished Cujo.
Oh, yeah. No,
And
that doesn't
it's-
count.
It's a 2-star book, in my opinion. I was that upset. It was interminable.
Michael, aren't you the one that told us that he forgot that he even wrote that book?
Yeah, he forgot how he wrote that
Mhm.
because he was just so loaded on cocaine.
Whatever. It probably
Yeah.
wasn't just coke.
And
He
probably a
has
bunch
said
of other stuff, yeah.
He would have greatly benefited from a better editor back there, and that much like Tommy Knockers, there is a decent story rattling around in there, but it's just not that one. And it is... I thought Pet Sematary did enough to make me loathe the characters from the moment that they, stride onto the page, but dear Lord, this book just made me want to set fire to it the entire time.
And is it a longer King story, or is it kind of like
No.
Carrie, where it was like, I think, isn't Carrie like only like 250 pages, or it's a very digestible
I don't know the
book.
running time on that, but Cujo was about 384 pages, and it would have done really well if it were 184 pages.
Like a novella instead.
Yes, it was a great short story idea that just he has at least 2 straight chapters of the mother and the son in the car hiding from Cujo and worrying about all of the things conceivably that might happen if they open the door.
Fun.
Sounds like a lot of filler.
Ooh, it hurt me. I finished and turned to Melissa. I was just like, I'm really glad that AA is in existence, and that that van missed long enough for Dr. King to be able to still be penning material, because yipes, that was a tough read.
I'm in the similar boat-ish with what I'm just about to finish reading. I almost recommended it to you last week or the week before. It's The Only Good Indians is the name of the book.
You mentioned, yeah.
And overall, it's pretty good, but I agree with, like, what you're saying resonates with my experience right now, where there's a lot where I'm like, why are we spending so much time on this? And also it does one of the criminal things, or it's not criminal. It's one of my pet peeves in writing where there is a significant lack in exposition. So your characters go from literally one locale to another with almost no fanfare. Like, it's like, oh, so we're here now? Oh yeah, we did the magical thing. Well, you spent like 18 minutes talking about basketball. Couldn't
Scene
you
transition.
Yeah, like 18 minutes talking about basketball. Couldn't you have taken like 2 minutes to be like, and then we drove in a car and da 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 da. I don't know. It's minor gripes.
No,
Overall, the
that's
story's good. I feel like I'm missing, because it's about like Native Americans. Like it's all set like on the res and like slightly off res. Like I feel like if I had more ground, like if I understood like the culture a little more, like if I understood traditions, like if I was a little more educated on it, I think a lot more would hit me. There's some cool horror tropes in there that I think you would like still. I think it's worth a once over. I don't think it's a 2-star book. I would say it's probably a 3.
Also, to speak to just how inured we are from having grown up in the great state of Arizona, that we will flippantly throw off the res.
Yeah. I was... Yeah.
Having been raised in a close, proximity, I think you hear other individuals say it, and but I've had folks actually talk about microaggressions and utilizing the term "he went off the reservation."
They address that in the book.
Okay, so yeah, I it's one of those things where I think just because we're educating ourselves and expanding our consciousness, having heard it, I for some reason mentally took you to task for that.
Oh no, but I was meaning like literally, like they are on an Indian reservation and off the Indian reservation.
But you called it the res, which to us colloquially sounds perfectly reasonable, but someone who's living in the upper Maine might not necessarily be like, the res? That's a little insensitive, you prick.
Now someone has clipped it that's not Michael, and they're going to be like, fire this man.
That'll be the next Twitter trend is Gina Carano, John W. We want him out.
But I feel like you brought one. I don't think that you purely brought it up so that we could Sigourney segue into this, but you damn sure did it well.
I tried.
Speaking of King-related things disappointing you to your core, I'm just gonna finish it out of spite at this point. But I'm watching the Hulu version of 11/22/63, and it is atrocious. If you've read the book and then watched the show, there is almost nothing to do with the other. Like they cherry picked the weirdest things to keep in, and then everything else is different. They added a character. They added a sidekick. Are you fucking kidding me?
I believe this was part of my previous begrudging the point about how much I hated that thing where I said they felt the need to inject a secondary quote unquote everyman character to allow him to explain in sort of like expository passages to the other person about why this has great importance. And it takes the character that you encounter in Derry, who is I forget his name presently, but the one who sidetracks him behind the house and tries to stop him from killing the father.
I don't know if it was Billy, but I think it was something close. But no, I think it was Billy because it brought to mind, oh goodness, the sequel to The Shining. I'm forgetting Dr. Sleep. And the kind of sidekick that's there, that also a Billy or something similar. Yes. Very, very similar vibes to that.
King does enjoy utilizing the same names and sort of just throwing them in the tumble jar. But yes, so they use him, and instead of being an old man who has a heart attack, they change him into like a teenager.
Yeah.
Who somehow, gets wise to what Mr. Jake Epping is doing back here in the past and asks to come along on the journey.
Yeah, within the first episode, he flat out goes, why are you doing this? Like, well, I'm from the future. Like, he just drops it like it's fucking nut. Like, it's fucking so stupid.
The butterfly effect be damned.
I had to remember why they made him a kid, and because they completely took out the whole. Why was he in Derry in the first place? Yeah,
he doesn't go to Derry technically. If I recall
he does
correctly.
not go to Derry. He goes to Kentucky.
The more interesting parts. It was It was because it was an
furthermore,
outsider view of Derry right after what happened with it, and
it's someone who,
Yeah,
like I've said, not to steal John's point, and I'll let you talk, my friend. I'm sorry, I
you're great.
steamrolled, but we started on this in our Facebook conversation. It's someone who just absolutely, essentially, does not understand the Kingverse or the story itself, and just read the elevator pitch of, ooh, it's a guy who goes back in time to save Kennedy. That would be a fun thing, and then like breezed through the book and just retained bits and pieces and decided, I can cobble together a really fun story with this. Fuck you, James Franco. You are not that creative, my friend, because you did not manage to make that thing one iota better, and you just turned it into a like silly bit of pablum that mindless mouth breathers who are dragging their knuckles right now might watch for 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's he took the main character. I think adding the sidekick villainizes the main character. Like, I fucking hate James Franco's character in the show so much. Like, he is such a colossal prick. Yeah. And in the book, the main character, like the protagonist, comes off as an everyman hero. You know, like I don't know. That's all I really got.
He's a sympathetic character because he's out of time. He's just completely, like against all odds, trying to do something that he wasn't even 100% sure on to begin with. And like I said, the fulcrum of the whole story to me was the fact that, one, he was endeared to Harry Dunning enough to want to go and change him and help impact his life because his life had an emotional impact on him. And then Al manages to kind of manipulate or coerce him by saying it's your duty to the country. And in the show, they make Al just a loudmouthed asshole who's like, fuck you, I got cancer. You got to go fix it because I can't.
Speaking of
just
lack
an
of
absolute ass.
Speaking of lack of exposition, there is weird exposition in the show where I think Al, in the first episode, like his pitch to go back to the past, like lasts probably maybe like 5 minutes, or that's exaggerating, but it's a very short amount of time in the pilot. And then throughout the series so far, if they ever need to explain something to you, they flash back to a conversation that he's having with Al that they never even alluded to having happened. In the show, essentially in the pilot, it's like he has a disagreement. Al comes back fucking aged and cancer ridden, and then Jake's like, I don't think I can fucking do this, and then the next scene Al's dead, and he's like, well, maybe now I should do it. And that's all there is. There's no big heart to heart with Al. There's just, fuck it.
And they steal that somewhat from the story in that he begins to, having read Al's notebook and entertains so much of the history that Al wrote, that he feels like he begins to talk to Al in his head,
which is a cool
and have
device.
Conversations. But he's not literally saying, I spent 18 hours with him straight where he downloaded all this stuff, and now I have just instantaneous photo recollection of everything he ever said to me.
Which is how it comes off.
Yes, it's really horrible. It's difficult to wrap your head around. There are really great moments with he and Sadie that are touching, but they don't come nearly anywhere close to how great the story is, because you're not invested in the characters at all. It's just, there's a couple of, attractive people that are falling for each other in the midst of this nonsense.
I was going to say, the one positive that I'll give the show is that I enjoy seeing who they cast as characters. So on my reread of the book, Sadie, the actress that plays Sadie, is gorgeous.
Yes,
just a knockout. So it'll be nice for like a nice mental for the next time I'm reading the book.
For the fappening.
For the fappening, yes, on the toilet. Sorrow. But yeah, that was the Stephen King Science Corner.
If we haven't disabused you of the notion that you need to watch this just to hate, fuck it, Michael. Let me try harder.
I did have a thought that I wanted to just bring up, because the way that you were describing how they took the source material and kind of like twisted it to their own ends, not necessarily to change it to deliver it, but just like the blandness. Almost. What did you say? At one point, I think you may have used the term milk toast.
Pablum.
Yes.
Pablum's dog.
It reminded me of a great YouTube video that I saw a while ago that was that was talking about Disney and adapting darker folk tales, and then turning it into a bright, shiny, loving, caring, everybody's happy,
i.e. Pocahontas.
Yes, that's the best example I can think of right now. But most of the other stories that they adapt, like I think like Cinderella's a lot more dark.
Little Mermaid's fucked up, isn't it?
That one too. Yes, yeah. Just like if it's a Hans Christensen,
Christian Andersen.
I was close.
Yeah.
2 out of 3.
Man, I am so fucking lost.
He wrote a lot of the stories that Disney kind of were like, and we're going to take these and adapt them and put our copyright on them. So
because we want people to leave feeling fulfilled and happy, and we can't talk about time travel, or we can't really talk about alternate realities or string theory because that's just going to scare people.
Yeah, you can't talk about quantum narration.
I'll give you an A for effort there.
We haven't
triggered
him with quantum in a long time.
I do want to try and think about quantum narration, where you aren't sure if the narrator actually said it or not. It's almost like retconning. Like, did they actually say that back then?
So it's Christopher Nolan behind a keyboard.
Or people saying, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah, there you go. It's the Nelson effect. Did they really say
Thank
that?
you.
Yeah, there we go. I like that.
There is actually a film called The Mandela Effect that is on Hulu right now that I saw as I was scrolling through material today, and I chuckled at myself because I was like, oh, well, Simpsons did it.
Yeah.
Before we get into the episode proper, because I couldn't think of a good segue to this, a little update on the Utah monolith. Yeah, I kind of had to force that monolith in there.
It's important to do.
What a monolithic thing to do.
Yes.
Michael's got monolith. That's what we're saying. He's going to need to take some time away from the show.
Yes.
It sucks. Anyway.
The sucking disease. Yes, that's
so there was a
good old sucking fuck.
I won't talk about all the various monoliths that have popped up, except for the one that popped up, I think, the day of recording.
You are turning me on so much right now.
Hey, wait, Richard Holder's back.
Yeah. Richard Holder here.
The third monolith popped up somewhere in California,
in my pants.
And it was torn down. And I'll say I'm going to read the title of the Vice article that I pulled this from.
You can manage.
Mysterious monolith update: Racists destroy California monolith. Proclaim Christ superior to space aliens.
What? What?
So
all right.
The monolith that sprang up in California was actually taken down during a live stream by a group of right-wing young men. Let's see, they chanted things like America First, Christ is King.
I've totally had sex before.
They called one of them called part of the monolith's construction, air quotes, gay. They also, once they tore down the monolith, they replaced it with a wooden cross. Another person in the video says, Christ is king in this country. We don't want illegal aliens from Mexico or outer space.
What if...
so let's tear this bitch down.
What would they do? What do you think they would do if a monolith cross appeared?
Praise it.
Probably.
Well...
maybe go to war with some countries over it.
There you go. Just say it's filled with oil.
If you mention that we don't worship false idols unless you're a Slytherin hat, then you might get some people really incensed.
Ooh-wee. Oh, wait. Contemplating
Michael,
if
continue.
those pursue... Okay, so the people were kind of like chewed out on social media and stuff like that, and they claimed that it was Antifa trying to track them down. So, yeah, there you go. Speaking of, they actually, so there is a group that has come forward as the, progenitors of the monoliths. And I will read this
Is
article.
it Moms Against Drunk Driving? Tell me it's Moms Against Drunk
That
Driving.
would be so beautiful. I don't know why, but that would just be amazing. So it's a group of stunt artists under the collective label of the Most Famous Artist.
Are we having lies in this segment?
Yeah.
No, that's what they're called. The founder is a guy named Matty Moe. I had another article that said he did some other thing that was some other big art installation that was super important. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't that important to me. But anyway, so they are selling monoliths for $45,000. So they will set them up. Where if you pay them, they'll set it up wherever you want them to.
That's like a quarter of one of our royalty checks from Taco Bell.
We can't discuss that.
Yeah.
That's important
sorry,
to keep
guys.
under
You mean in our fight
wraps.
against Taco Bell, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and then they've popped up in a couple of other places like England, I think somewhere in El Paso and elsewhere. But since we have someone that's
I had
taking
one pop up in my bathroom.
exactly that great picture that you showed,
with
I
Pornhub.
did share that with you guys, right?
yes,
Will you put that in the show
So-
notes? Will you find a way?
life finds a way. Yeah, I can
Or
do
we
that.
could just show it on the
Chilean
After
sea
Dark.
bass, I believe. Yes.
But essentially, to sum it up, a group has taken, they've said that
They
they
took
allegedly
credit?
do it. Yeah, they took
Yes.
credit. Yes.
Yeah.
And a bunch of them has sprung up since, probably because they've been selling those monoliths for $45,000.
You can say pop-up. It's fine. We're okay with it.
It actually one sprung up next to that Austin taco pop-up last night.
Thank Quab.
Yes. So that was the update. I just wanted to say that as kind of like a closure.
And that
to
happened
this.
almost like the moment we closed our laptops last week. It was almost like immediately like, fuck, another one popped up. Like
Yeah, that
almost,
was
it
the
was the
California
same
one.
night for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So much so that we are now going to change the title of this podcast from Disinformed to Monoliths and Mexican Pizzas.
Yeah, I mean,
If
if
only.
you had to give a subtitle to season 2's arc, I think Monoliths and Mexican Pizzas would fit.
Yes,
Quite
that's going to
nicely.
be our the transcription book
Oh.
we release, a la Night Vale.
And lest we forget, alcohol. When you consume
Oh.
alcohol, your liver deteriorates.
Okay.
That's I've actually decided I like your bit, but I'm going to co-opt it and say Walton Goggins and the Hulk had a baby.
Oh, did we say that on air?
No, we did not, but we're just going to leave it alone and let people
Okay,
try to interpret
all
on their own. Like good folks and perpetual listeners like Melissa will know because she got exposed to it when I had to explain why I was cackling like a small child as I left recording last week.
Yeah, I have a surprise for you guys down the road here.
Oh, good.
Not-
All right. Well,
it
the
might not be-
TikToxic Avenger may make a
Yeah,
reappearance.
it might not be tonight, but I definitely got something for you guys.
Oh, goody.
Remix. Well, speaking of things that you thought had gone away and are going to bring themselves right back in.
Herpes.
Sure. There's going to be the occasional hole in the show, and there is occasionally holes in human anatomy, which is what this week's topic is going to delve in and through and right back out again. So for those who are uninitiated, what we typically do here is we delve into a random esoteric topic and explain it to one another. But in the course of divulging what it is that the history surrounding this weird topic, we will leaven in the occasional lie just to make things interesting. And it is incumbent on the co-hosts to then, I'm talking to the camera as though there are people watching other than us.
You're in character.
I don't know why. I'm trying to, I'm too used to the YouTube thing. So it is incumbent upon the co-hosts to call out the lies in situ because that's the whole premise of the show. However, even if they get it right, the points do not count and no one wins because we are all avowed losers, and we know this.
Amen. Ramen.
Indeed. Thank you.
Or
So,
Varelsa.
this week we will be discussing Phineas Gage, or as I like to call him, Joe Gage.
Can I just go ahead and say that I'm really offended there that I left you guys a really, really awesome Orson Scott card reference and nobody said anything about it?
I didn't hear it. I'm
I
sorry, but
didn't.
hail Stan.
Yes.
Michael said ramen, I said or Varelsa, or Varelsi, or, the thing.
I mean, it helps if you don't mumble it, but
I also haven't read cards since high school, so I can't really help you there.
Never mind. There's some Uber nerds. Uber nerds. There's some Uber nerds there that aren't even listening to the show. Anyway, Phineas
There's
Gage.
0.1% of our listenership probably understood that reference.
Thank
John
you,
is now
listener in
the,
Romania.
John is the speaker for the dead joke.
Yes, that is who I am.
Yes! I don't have that title anymore. It's
Been
beautiful.
living in Ender's shadow here. All right.
Can I commit xenocide?
You can try.
Well, that attitude.
You've only had children of the mind. Daddy who's not my daddy.
Oh, daddy, that's not my daddy.
Touche.
And the shadow of the giant here. Okay.
Oh,
Let's see if we can get all of them rolled into one. The shadow of the hegemon as well. We're all just completely absorbed by it.
Well, thank you for
Fuck
sticking
me.
it out, Courtney. We appreciate you listening to the show.
We love you, and we're happy that you're here. Melissa, I'm sorry. I'll be back in 20 minutes. So, I will start by indicating to you lovely gentlemen that unlike my prior episodes, this one is going to be a little easier. There are only 5 lies.
Bullshit.
You're welcome. So, are we prepared to dive into this numbskull nonsense?
No.
How many puns do you have in there?
So many.
Yes.
How dry
and to
do
be
you want
honest,
it?
John, neither was he. He
Okay.
was definitely not ready.
All right. All right.
All right, so Phineas P. Gage was an American railroad construction foreman remembered for his improbable survival of an accident wherein a large iron rod was driven completely through his head, destroying much of his brain's left frontal lobe, and subsequently for that injury's reported effects on his personality and behavior over the remaining 12 years of his life. Effects sufficiently profound, for a time at least, that friends saw him as quote-unquote no longer Gage.
So before the accident, he listened to Nickelback, and then after the accident, he listened to Five Finger Death Punch.
You know what's funny is you say that, I actually owe Nickelback something. You're going to derail me already. They had
Shit.
their like live from home DVD. I think that I'm alluding to the Evanescence title. I don't remember what it is, but they did a show in Canada. They covered a song by a band that I later came to love called Big Wreck.
Oh.
And that was my first exposure because Big Wreck is a Canadian national band, basically. They're well heralded up north, but they weren't really well known down here. But it was through Chad Kroeger performing the song Mistake. I was like, holy hell, that's a really great song.
There's
And
no
I
way
went
he
and
wrote
invested. So exactly. So it was through Nickelback that I got turned on to Big Wreck, which is one of my, at least top 10, if not, top 5 bands presently. So
Hell yeah.
I have
So-
to give a little attribution where it's due. They also had Jerry Cantrell on that. They did Alice in Chains' It Ain't Like That on that show. So they at
I
least
love
have
that
good
song.
taste outside of their own music. They did start out as a cover band. So,
Okay.
So you could say that a hero could save you.
Well, I'm not going
Fuck
to just
off,
stand there and wait.
Thank you.
Michael likes his pants around his feet, apparently. But
Well, my name is Mr. Richard Holder. If you pulled out my pants, there's just a big old calculator down there.
And Michael starts out every one of his classes by, look at this graph.
Becky, without any provocation, I was walking downstairs to like make coffee in the morning, and I was about to walk through the gate into the living room, and she goes, "Look at this pug I have. Every time I do, it makes me laugh." And it got me so good.
Yeah, we all just want to be a big rock star. Okay.
Gotta call Logan.
Long known as the American Crowbar case, once termed a modern
No,
miracle.
that's bullshit. It wasn't a crowbar.
It was called the American Crowbar case.
What?
Yeah, you fucking nerd.
I'll get to it, but yes, that's once termed a modern miracle in a wonderless age. Phineas Gage influenced 19th century discussion about the mind and brain, particularly debate on cerebral localization, and was perhaps the first case to suggest the brain's role in determining personality, as well as fuel speculation that damage to specific parts of the brain might induce specific mental changes. Are y'all with me here?
Yes.
Yes.
Brain damage might make you a different person. This is often broached when people are talking about serial killers. And so a subject that I discussed previously and something I found very interesting is there are any number of killers that took short, sharp shocks to the head, and they felt that some sort of concussive trauma might be similar to this. So the Chris Benoit case as well for the chronic encephalopathy and things like that. So there's a lot of things that this starts as kind of the galvanizing point for discussion.
Yeah, you hear that all
What about
not all the time, but go ahead.
Brain damage.
I was gonna say, is there a connection between like his case and like the development of lobotomies?
I can't say that because I'm fairly certain they were probably lobotomizing people prior to the 1800s.
I don't think so. It's actually
Listen, guys,
more
I invented lobotomies, and I know when they happened.
I'll allow you to research that, Michael. You can tell me when they first developed the full frontal lobotomy.
What the
Okay.
listeners couldn't see was I got an authentic Michael grimace of "fuck you, I'm going to strangle you through the fucking computer" face. Which
it was a legit grimace because he went rubble right
I
after.
think I triggered him, and he thought I was one of his students for a second. Like they were trying to like talk back to him, and he was gonna give
Don't
him.
contradict me.
He was like, "Once we get back to in-person learning again, I'm gonna give you a tuning fork, you fucking silly sack of shit."
I only asked not about any of this because I was ignoring it, but lobotomies. I recently watched a show on Netflix called Ratched.
Okay.
I need to watch that.
It's really good. It's based off of the nurse that
One
was in
Flew
One
Over the
Flew Over
Cuckoo's Nest, yeah.
Yes,
Which I've never seen.
Really?
I've never read it.
It's an interesting. The Casey book is fun, but the film's not bad.
Okay. Well, sorry for the derailing there. Let's
That's
get
what
back
we're
to the
here for, my
American
friends.
Crowbar.
Again, it's as per usual. Shane chooses the text-heavy topics, so I intersperse all of the discussion as you want. We'll try to keep this interesting.
As long as you don't have any children stabbing each other, I think you can't do any worse than me.
Well, we are going to get a little graphic this week, so I should preface
Ooh.
that going forward.
Are you
There
gonna
will be
have a
some
trigger?
discussion. I mean, I'm giving it right now and essentially saying there will be some graphic depictions of people dealing with internal anatomy at some point later on, because this gentleman does get his brains blown out.
Blaines.
And it's
Yes,
not
his
the
blades.
Pornhub channel that I found this
No,
week.
sadly.
It's a different
All
kind
right.
of...
Pornhub?
Okay. And depression, if
So-
you remember.
Please. End me, Michael. So Gage is a fixture in the curricula of neurology, psychology, and neuroscience, one of the great medical curiosities of all time and a living part of medical folklore. Frequently mentioned in books and scientific papers, he even has a minor place in popular culture. Despite this celebrity, the body of established fact about Gage and what he was like, whether before or after the injury, is small, which has allowed the fitting of almost any theory desired to the small number of facts we have. Gage acting as a Rorschach ink blot in which proponents of various conflicting theories of the brain all saw support for their views. So essentially everybody just sort of attributes things that they want to and then make up a story about his behavior to justify what their
They make it
stance
fit.
is. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is fun. So historically published accounts of Gage, including scientific ones, have almost always severely exaggerated and distorted his behavioral changes, frequently contradicting the known facts. So apparently the books were all written by the Trump administration.
Ooh.
Get him, Dad.
I mean, they just didn't want to cause a panic with Gage.
Get him,
Gage,
Daddy. That's
Gage.
not my daddy.
Gage.
Gage.
So it is Joe Gage's cousin, Phineas.
Gage.
All right, so a report of Gage's physical and mental condition shortly before his death implies that his most serious mental changes were temporary, so that in later life he was far more functional and socially far better adapted, and that the years immediately following his accident were kind of an anomaly in and of themselves. Disorientation would likely be somewhat inherent to the fact that you got a giant metal rod shoved through your head.
Well,
we're presupposing. I know there is a channel on Pornhub that we have seen where John has researched this.
Yeah.
Terminally.
Yep. Drill sounding.
There we go. That is a different kind of rod, my friend.
Oh, which
A-
I
a
got
s-
to describe to Michael when I saw him, and it disgusted him thoroughly. So that was
Well, we're
that's
not
great.
including that on the podcast because I refuse to drive off the 2 listeners that are still here. So let's just keep this going.
Okay, cool.
All right. In 1848, Gage, who was 25, was the foreman of a crew cutting a railroad bed in Cavendish, Vermont. On September the 13th, as he was using a tamping iron to pack explosive powder into a hole, that's what she said, the powder detonated.
So that's what she said.
Sometimes you just can't control that sort of thing.
Don't you hate it when your powder detonates early?
I always do.
It's terrible.
Happens frequently. The tamping iron, 43 inches long, 1.25 inches in diameter, and weighing 13.25 pounds.
Jesus.
Just to give you an idea of what was, just flying towards his brain.
That's a thick rod.
And how.
There we go.
Shot skyward penetrated Gage's left cheek, ripped into his brain, and exited through the back of his skull, landing several dozen feet away. Though blinded in his left eye, he might not even have lost consciousness, and he remained savvy enough to speak to the attendant doctor as he approached in saying, "I have never considered myself a devout man, but the Lord has certainly proven his divinity to me this day."
It was a fair point, I'd say. Yeah.
You just got a giant piece of metal shoved through your skull. Yeah, you might have faith in God afterwards.
The first thing is that I can't see. Yeah, it's just a flesh wound. I can't see through my left eye, but you know what? I didn't need that anyway.
I'll take a walk.
Yeah,
blind in one eye, can't see out the other. That's where we're at.
He saw half of it.
He is not Ghost Dog. I will thank you. So, despite 19th century references to Gage as the American crowbar case, to Michael's previous point, the tamping iron does not have a bend or claw sometimes associated with a crowbar. Rather, it was simply a pointed cylinder, something like a javelin, which was round and fairly smooth. There are depictions, I don't need to go into that, but just to say it was not actually a crowbar-like substance, or it would not have gone through his skull. That would have dragged his head off his shoulders.
He's just holding the top of his head in his left hand.
Yes.
He's like, I'm fine.
It's like Death Becomes Her, just knock the skull completely back away from the body and just walking around with the Headless Horseman vibe.
Yeah.
So Gage's initial survival would have ensured him a measure of celebrity on its own, but his name was etched into history by observations made by John Martin Harlow, the doctor who treated him for a few months afterwards. Gage's friends found him as no longer Gage, according to Harlow. The balance between his intellectual faculties and animal propensities seemed gone. Like John Watkins before him, he could not stick to plans, he uttered the grossest profanity, and showed little deference for his fellows.
And nudie clips to his friends without asking permission.
He used the term sounding infrequently previously, and then just began to vomit it constantly.
And then he said, "Have you ever had poutine?"
And tit cup. Titty pig. The railroad construction company that employed him, which had thought him a model foreman, refused to take him back. So insult to injury, back in the day before we got punitive about things like this, that's an on-the-job injury. Now, granted, probably his own fault, but still, you wish that you had retained some sort of an attorney. Gage went to work at a stable in New Hampshire, because you want them around horses after you've had a metal rod driven through your skull.
Right.
And then eventually drove coaches in Chile, joining relatives in San Francisco eventually, where he died in May of 1860 at the age of 36, following a series of seizures. Michael, you have questions.
He went to Chile?
Yes, he went to Chile and drove coaches. That was where he spent the bulk of his time. No, strangely enough. Yeah, that was where he held... They said he actually... That was the primary contribution to what likely got him back on a regimented schedule, as he could just drive the coach, and being structured like that helped to kind of reset his brain functionality, is what they're supposing. So, yeah. I mean, sometimes you have to travel abroad when you've had a hole through the skull.
That sounds like a good cure. Yeah.
You need that job like you need another hole through the head. Anywho.
No.
Upon having Gage brought into his care, and here's where we'll start getting a little graphic here, friends and neighbors. Harlow shaved the scalp around the region of the tamping iron's exit, then removed coagulated blood, small bone fragments, and an ounce or more of protruding brain, which sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'd say that's way too much brain.
You would think, but wait, there's more. After probing for foreign bodies and replacing 2 large detached pieces of bone, Harlow then closed the wound with adhesive straps, leaving it partially open for drainage.
Fair.
I mean, that's what you want to do.
The entrance wound in the cheek was bandaged only loosely, for the same reason. A wet compress was applied, then a nightcap, and then further bandaging to secure these dressings. This sounds like the worst version of A Christmas Tale that I have ever encountered in my life.
And how?
Yeah, I thought you meant like he gave him a nightcap and told him to like sleep it off or something.
If only.
Here's a cold compress. Go take a
She in her
beer and go
nightgown,
to sleep.
I in my cap, settled down to poke my brain back into my fucking skull.
Settled down for a long winter's fap.
Ho ho ho's.
Oh, Michael, you
Yes.
got your one joke per month.
Hey, he's above the quota right now. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Harlow also dressed Gage's hands and forearms, which along his face had been deeply burned.
Oh, yeah.
And
Explosives, yeah.
Ordered that Gage's head be kept elevated. Much like the Elephant Man before him, apparently.
Right.
Late that evening, Harlow noted, mind clear. Constant agitation of his legs, being alternately retracted and extended, says he does not care to see his friends and shall be back at work in a few days.
Sounds like me.
I was going to say, it's Tuesday.
Wait,
So
no, it's not. It's Wednesday.
me, it's any other day.
Huh?
Despite this optimism, Gage's convalescence was, in fact, a long, difficult, and uneven one. Though recognizing his mother and uncle, summoned from Lebanon, New Hampshire, some 500 miles away, on the morning after the accident, on the second day, he lost control of his mind and became decidedly delirious. By the fourth day, he was again rational, knows his friends, and after a week's further improvement, Harlow entertained, for the first time, the thought that it was possible for Gage to recover. This improvement, however, was of short duration. Beginning 12 days after the accident, Gage was semi-comatose, seldom speaking unless spoken to, and then answering only in monosyllables. So this is most certainly me on Wednesdays. And then on the 13th day, Harlow noted, failing strength, coma deepened, the globe of the left eye became more protuberant, with a fungus or deteriorated infected tissue, nay, necrotic, pushing out rapidly from the wounded brain and coming out the top of the head.
Hot.
You beat me to it.
Yeah, there is
This
a
the only
fungus
thing I
among
get.
us.
Yeah.
Probably smelled
There you
pretty
go.
good.
Oh, I
Yeah.
am sure. And then the 14th day, the exhalations from the mouth and head were horribly fetid. Comatose, but will answer in monosyllables if aroused.
Mm.
I have an idea.
Yes.
This is that Pornhub nursing, apparently.
Do it.
Oh, your big dumb balls are too full.
Let's help get that and drain your brain.
Milk me.
Wrong head, nurse. He will not take nourishment unless strongly urged.
Please take it.
And then the friends and attendants are in hourly expectancy of his death and have his coffin and clothes in readiness. So he's walking around conscious and actually able to carry on a conversation with a giant hole in his skull and brain. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, nah, he's dead. He's starting to smell. There's stuff protruding from his skull.
The weirdest thing about this to me is that I can almost guarantee that even with all that going on, if someone were to tell him or were to have told him like, hey, there's this like pandemic happening right now and you need to wear a mask because it's going to protect others. It's not for you. It's to be courteous to others. I think he would still, with a giant hole in his fucking face, still wear a mask.
Well, I have met many an individual also in possession of a giant hole in their fucking face, and they have a problem with it, strangely enough, so I'm not sure. That may strain credulity too much, John.
Oh, sorry.
With all these fanciful ideas.
I also feel that he would have been even more shocked if you said, you know what? In a few hundred years, they're going to try to take the Mexican pizza away from Taco Bell.
And he would have said, Can we try that explosion again? It missed the important parts.
My mouth is still intact, and it will long for the meaty
I don't
and
want to
beefy
fucking
beautiful.
live in a world that exists that will eventually get rid of the Mexican pizza. So just fucking end
Yep.
it.
Well, lucky
End
for
me.
you, there is a recipe for the Mexican pizza in the show notes, so you can make your own and save yourself. Did you know that cocoa powder is a part of the recipe?
Yeah, it's the most important part.
Yeah, I was shocked. I did
I
not
always
imagine.
figured their meat was very chocolatey.
Dirty. Okay.
All right, then.
Speaking of chocolatey meat, galvanized to action, Harlow cut off the fungi, which were sprouting out from the top of the brain and filling the opening,
Yum.
and made free application of caustic silver nitrate to them. So apparently he thought he was a werewolf. With a scalpel, he laid open the frontalis muscle from the exit wound down to the top of the nose, and immediately there were discharged 8 ounces of ill-conditioned pus with blood and excessively fetid. I know what you're thinking.
Do you?
Yes. Where's my Mexican pizza?
Thank you, Lord.
Yeah. Oh, man. As I was reading this, I thought 8 ounces of pus.
That's a lot of... And they didn't notice that his face was, like, swollen or any of that
I'm
shit?
sure
like,
they did. I just don't think that they had taken into account that there would be that much that was accumulating there.
Now, the listeners are...
It's still coming.
The listeners aren't going to see this, but I'm going to hold up my pint glass here. And this line, there's this black line, that is 16 ounces. So half of that, that's a lot of fucking pus.
That is a ridiculous quantity. So to imagine... I was more shocked and marveled by the wonder of the human anatomy, that this person would be able to sustain a wound like that and still be alive, and the body, through sheer force of will, is actually, exuding all of these things from it. Hooray for pus. We all think it's disgusting, but it does serve a really wonderful purpose. So welcome to the Bill Nye Science Corner.
It tastes great on eggs.
And in your anus.
Where do you think I get the pus?
Bill.
I thought Frank was helping.
You already gave a trigger warning, so we can be as gross as we want.
Exactly. We got to lean into it a little bit. So needless to say, it's very lucky that Gage encountered Dr. Harlow when he did. Otherwise, the man would have just turned into a giant pimple, and no one would have been able to save him. But there were very few doctors in 1848 who would have had the experience with cerebral abscess with which Harlow left Jefferson Medical College, which probably saved Gage's life. Long story short, too bloody late, he eventually mostly recovered, and though he was left with a slight impairment of his memory, small enough that a stranger would have no notice of it. So he would still be able to remember faces, he would be able to carry on conversations. He had, some short-term memory damage, I'm sure, for those who saw the film Memento, for the Nolan fangs amongst us. He probably had to make a lot of notes, I'm sure, if he wanted to keep track of things,
right.
Or tattoos.
Well.
Now, in time, Gage became the most famous patient in the annals of neuroscience because his case was the first to suggest a link between brain trauma and personality change. In his book, An Odd Kind of Fame, Stories of Phineas Gage, it's a catchy title.
Is that bullshit?
No.
Okay.
Sadly, no. The University of Melbourne's Malcolm Macmillan writes that 2/3 of the introductory psychology textbooks mention Gage.
Okay, there has to be bullshit somewhere in there.
Not a single ounce of it. So
I got really suspicious with the Macmillan.
Do you not trust folks from Australia, Michael?
No.
Because the United States is just as much a prison colony.
Hey, Michael.
I wasn't going to say that.
Don't piss off the 3 listeners in Australia like that. You piece of shit. Hey, Australian folks, this is for you. Michael. Hey, Michael. Hey,
I'm listening. I'm literally recording this podcast, which means I'm listening to you through my headset.
Right,
so, yes, what would you like to say? Yes.
You're a cunt.
Oh, okay. I do want to apologize to Liam because I know that he's listened to this podcast before, and he's the only person
You
I
do
know from
trust
Australia,
him, don't you? Don't you?
He did send us candy when I moved into my new house, and it didn't kill us. So, yeah, I'd say I trust him.
I will also say Australian licorice, greatest licorice on the planet. No argument here. And Liam, mind the drop bears. Moving on. The Australians will know. It's a fun joke. All right.
All you Australians out there.
Indeed. I come from the land down under. Even today, Gage's skull, the tamping iron, and mask of his face made while he was alive are the most sought-out items at the Warren Anatomical Museum on the Harvard Medical School campus. Here we go into the nitty-gritty and the final bit of nonsense for this glorious topic, gentlemen.
We also have not caught a single fucking lie.
Well, it is fairly dense. I will admit there are, I think, 3 that have bypassed presently.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have a couple more you can catch on the back end, just to prime you. Regarding the changes in Gage's behavior, Harlow's 1848 report, published just as Gage was emerging from his convalescence and the giant pus-filled brain that he had, merely hinted at psychological symptoms. So, in truth, Harlow states, the mental manifestations of the patient I reserve to a future communication. I think the case is exceedingly interesting to the enlightened physiologist and intellectual philosopher. To say that there is no difference in his mental manifestations after his recovery is not true. He was gross, profane, coarse, and vulgar to such a degree that his society was intolerable to decent people. So he would have fit in perfectly as a co-host to this podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
Ooh.
No question. Consequently, Macmillan's analysis of scientific and popular accounts of Gage found that they almost always distort and exaggerate his behavioral changes well beyond anything described by anyone who had direct contact with him. He concludes that the known facts are inconsistent with the common view of Gage as a boastful, brawling, foul-mouthed, dishonest, useless drifter, unable to hold down a job, who died penniless in an institution. Not true, as we've discovered, he held jobs all the way up until his death, so he was still functioning decently enough to live in polite society afterwards. Most commentators still rely on hearsay and accept what others have said about Gage, namely that after the accident, he became a psychopath. So, here are some of the... we can go into... There's plenty of stuff about his post-recovery, and he still supported himself throughout. He had 2 different jobs. Early 1851, just before his death, to 1860, he was constantly employed, so he wasn't completely lost and just functioning as a derelict here. His other behaviors ascribed by various sources to the post-accident Gage that are either unsupported by or in contradiction to known facts include the following. Congratulations, it's a list, so you can start swinging.
Oh, goodness.
Mistreatment of his wife and children, though Gage actually had neither. Inappropriate sexual behavior, promiscuity, or bestial carnality. A lack of forethought, concern...
Bullshit? Did they actually think that he fucked animals?
I mean, to say bestial carnality would mean that he, had hungers, not that he just fucked creatures.
Way to sell out of your own pocket.
I misheard that.
I didn't say bestiality, but I mean...
Look at the spaghetti.
Yeah, it was bullshit, though, so I mean, you were on the right path. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
I did add bestial carnality was a Shane phrase, so you're welcome.
Cool.
You did catch that, but no, it wasn't bestiality.
Yeah, not with that attitude.
Indeed.
He needed the hole through the right side, not the left side.
Here's where we insert other bad joke from Shane. Yeah, my wife and I do it doggy style, which means that I sit up and beg and she rolls over and plays dead.
It's like looking into the Clark household.
Yeah, well.
She's not dead yet.
Huh?
That's why you haven't had sex with her. My friend Dahmer over here. So,
tasty.
That was insensitive of me to say.
It was more for me to say that.
It's okay. Destiny will hear these episodes in approximately
3 years.
Never, yeah.
Probably.
We all know
like,
you're a necrophiliac. We've been down this road.
She told me, she's like, I listened to the first 8 episodes. I'm like, cool. We have more than that now.
69, now going on 70. All right. A lack of forethought, concern for the future, or capacity for embarrassment. So definitely, again, good co-host.
Yeah.
Parading his self-misery and vainglory in showing his wounds, often running objects through the hole in his head to amuse onlookers.
That one's bullshit.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
That sounds like something you would do.
If only I could.
I mean, it's not too late.
It's sealed up eventually, right? They had to seal it.
They sealed it.
Yeah.
Long before then. I wanted to give you 1 or 2 layups here, gentlemen. I mean, come on.
That's why you winked.
And it's funny. So, gambling himself into emotional and reputational bankruptcy. irresponsibility, untrustworthiness, aggressiveness, and violence. Vagrancy, begging, drifting, drinking, aka he was a musician.
Yeah.
And then living as a layabout or a boorish mess. There were another 20 of these, but I pared it down to the ones that were the most fun to read for me, at the very least.
Well, bless you for doing so.
Fair enough.
None of these behaviors is mentioned by anyone who had met Gage or even his family, and as a Kotowitz, which I did not allude
Bless
to
you.
previously, had put it, Harlow does not report a single act that Gage should have been ashamed of. Nonetheless, the telling of Gage's story has increased interest in understanding the enigmatic role that the frontal lobes play in behavior and personality. And Raitu has said that in teaching about the frontal lobes, an anecdote about Gage is like an ace up your sleeve. It's just like whenever you talk about the French Revolution, you talk about the guillotine because it's so cool. Benderly suggests that instructors use the Gage case to illustrate the importance of critical thinking. And that, my dear listeners, is the story of Phineas Gage.
Well, thanks, Ron. That was a pretty good report.
Don't steal my bits.
Oh, it's happening, bitch.
And you need to call me Wayne or something if you want to stay on brand here. It
Nope.
has to be mishearing of my name, not calling me something close to your name. Silly sack of shit. It's also, you have to sell it with your face, which, considering this is just an auditory medium, is not going to translate nearly as well.
It pisses me off every
Save it for the
time
After
that you do it.
It's the one shtick I have on that show, so you got to
good
leave it to
shit.
me.
How did you lie here?
Do you have any other, pardon the pun here, stabs at things?
No, I'm trying to think of it, but there's just a big hole
Okay.
in me.
Was it really 8 ounces of pus?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
8 glorious ounces.
That's actually Gushing Granny's EP name.
Indeed.
8 ounces of
And
pus.
Blood Lube at the same time. It was the grindhouse of albums.
It's a split EP called
Yep.
8 Ounces of Pus.
I listened to it.
That's disgusting in ways that even managed to turn my stomach.
It's so gross.
All right, so here are the lies. Of course, you caught 2 of the things on the list, but prior to that, it was referred to as the American Crowbar case, Michael. You were right on the top of the other lie that I told afterwards, which was termed a modern miracle in a wonderless age. That is not what it is called. Here's the phrase that was employed, and you're going to thank me for changing it. The case which more than all others is calculated to excite our wonder, impair the value of prognosis, and even to subvert our physiological doctrines.
Michael's doing that face again.
I would have put that as a subtitle for a book.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
are
you
a
would've.
fuck what is long-winded. So, reading, I was like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. That's your tagline for the film? That's what follows. In a world, the case which more than all others is calculated to excite our wonder, impair the value of prognosis, and even to subvert our physiological doctrines.
Blood Lube.
Coming whenever I want.
Also, side note, because of you, Shane, I astounded a coworker when we were venting about an event at work, describing it as a group of dim-witted dunderfucks.
Congratulations.
And he said he'd never heard of something so astounding as that phrase, and he loved it. And yeah, so thank you.
I have very few things that I have contributed to the pop cultural phenomena here, and if that's one, I'm very glad.
You done good, kiddo.
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
Slap yourself on
Well,
the
if you
back.
do,
Did a
I'll get
good
hard.
job.
So
Even better, the quote attributed to Gage as the doctor was approaching him is a lie. I had initially written, I am now a holy man, which I thought was going to be a bit too far, too on the nose.
At least I
So
hope we
then
would've.
changed to, I have never considered myself a devout man, but the Lord has certainly proven his divinity to me this day, is the quote. What he actually
good.
said to the doctor as he walked up is he said, no. He said, here is business enough for you.
Wait, what?
Oh, because the
Here's
doctor was
business
struggling
enough for you. Yeah, it's like, by the way, I got plenty for you to take care of, asshole.
Okay.
So he had a sense of humor.
Good gravy.
He didn't convert to Christianity or anything, but he made a joke at his own expense.
Well,
so bless him.
Go.
I gotta give you that was a good one.
Bless you.
Yeah.
And bless him. He existed with a fucking hole in his head. And furthermore, I threw a what I will call a Michael lie in here.
Is a number?
In that I do something that it's a number and something that we have no frame of reference to living in the Southwest. Gage's...
That's a John.
It's a bit of both.
With Mount Everest.
So, though recognizing his mother and uncle, who were summoned from Lebanon, New Hampshire, some 500 miles away, Lebanon, New Hampshire is only 30 miles away, and they wouldn't have been able to travel that overnight, considering they were laying the railroad track down, so there wasn't really speedy conveyance to travel 500 miles.
I'm friends with Michael. I never claimed to be smart.
But, they would walk 500 miles just to be the man
guy who jerks off in your shoe
at your door.
The man who gets impaled by a camping iron.
Ta-da-dunda.
Ta-da-da.
So, those were the lies you did not catch, were those three. And then, of course, his bestial carnality and often running objects through his head to amuse onlookers were neither things that he did, though it would have been funnier if folks had claimed that.
I agree.
I see how I got these scars.
Good pull. I like that.
My father was a railroad baron and a fiend. He came home with a crowbar one night and fucked my face with it.
See? Let's put a hole in that head.
You want to be as useful to me as an asshole right here?
As Shane puts a circle on his forehead. I'm just doing descriptive audio.
Thank you.
Guys.
No, I appreciate that.
Ooh.
I was going to do that, and you beat me to the punch.
Can we get to the ASMR then?
No.
Yeah, you're Shane, let's do a quick update here. We're on the tail end of the episode here.
We are indeed.
How are you on Sekiro? Are you plowing right through? You hit a wall? Where are we at?
Plowing right through it like a hole through a head?
I have gotten to the weird banjo playing woman who attacks you when you stop and chat.
On her?
I just stopped after that, and I began to read Dune.
Hey,
and,
that's nice.
Yeah, so I am now about 200 pages into Dune, which I am really enjoying on the my most recent pass. It's a marvelous book. I look forward to you catching up as well. And of course, as I said, I barreled into Cujo, which was great.
Yeah. I actually just formed a quote-unquote little book club with a coworker, the same coworker who was impressed with Dim-Witted Dunderfuck. Is also an avid reader. That's how he decompresses after his shifts, and I don't understand how he... I tell him this all the time, like, I don't know how you go home and, like, read. Like, I am so emotionally and mentally just fucked after 10 hours of this that, like, I can't... Like, I'm not going to read something. Like, I just need something mind-numbing. But, to each their own. But anyway, he was telling me books that he's read, and I tried to give him Recursion out of my car, and he said that he'd already read it, and he loves Blake Crouch. To which I had the conversation of, I liked it the first time I read it, second time I read it, not so much, but, it does have some interesting things here and there. So long story short, crib from Shane, too bloody late, I realized that I had my bag with me and I had the paperback of Dune in there. And I said, if you want to get a head start, you can take Dune, because he's just about to be done with his book. Okay. And I plan on doing the Audible route again.
All right.
And Dark Tower is going to take me some time because I want to go with the podcast, because I'm really, really enjoying the analytics, like the analytical views while I'm reading the book. It's also
having your handheld. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's really, really helpful because there are some things earlier on in the series that I've forgotten about.
As I said, when we got into this whole nonsense initially, there are little bits that help you to keep the continuity strong so that you'll remember them by the time you get there, because otherwise there's a lot of shit to remember.
Yeah, but anyhow, he's going to be reading Dune, and so we all should be on the same page here pretty soon. And if you're listening, even though I don't think you're a podcast guy, hi Travis, and thank you, Travis.
Bless you.
Yeah.
And I look forward to you replacing Logan in the band eventually, because this is how John works his way through Friends.
Yeah, basically. I'm
Big
like another
Pun
local
intended.
Phoenix musician. I just need to sleep with everyone and then get them to play with me.
Homie hopping.
Yep, just homie hopping. I
And
learned it
then
from
you get them to join
I
your
learned
band
it from watching
after you play with them.
Yeah.
It's a very fine point you make. Well, gentlemen, I think that has managed to wrap this up in a tasty little Christmas-themed package.
Is it
It,
Christmas
like
themed?
tinsel around the tree.
Is it Christmas themed because there's holes in it?
Yes, it's holy. Silent Night, Holy Head. The holly and the
Mother of
ivory.
pearl.
Anything else that we would care to impart on the end of the episode here?
Birds aren't real. You should really look into marine life. Also, Shane already said that we're not doing social plugs anymore, but we cut that bit because it got a little too sad.
Oh, we can totally do social plugs. I mean, they need some sort of plug.
Podcast.
I mean, if you go to Facebook.com, it's facebook.com/disinformedpodcast, on Instagram @disinformedpodcast, and on the Twitters @disinformedpod. And also, we are on YouTube, but I'm afraid you're going to have to check us out because I have not done a tiny URL for that yet. But all of our material is there in playlist form, so if you prefer, you can snag the podcast there and listen to the entire run of this glorious thing, 70 episodes deep, all in sequence, because continuity's fun, particularly for jokes.
And you can get through the material in about 2 or 3 days of continuous listening.
Michael would know.
If he had to gander a guess. Yeah.
Or Gandalf a guess.
Gandalf a
Because
I
he
guess.
tested it.
arrives
Yes.
precisely when he means to.
And also, just because I'm going to stomp on you here, Shane, every Wednesday we've been doing a fanfic read, the Hogwarts School of Prayer and Miracles, which releases at 10 a.m.
Mountain Time.
every Wednesday. We are pleased to announce that soon here you're going to see basically a recurring guest throughout the entirety of it, or the rest of it, rather.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
The Christian Stitcher herself will be joining us as a recurring character.
To keep us thematically on brand, as it were. And we're also attempting to try out that old chestnut and see whether or not, if a fanfic falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, is it still entertaining?
I think yes. It's at least entertaining to 4 people.
I agree.
And it's entertaining to everyone who they're like, oh, you do that? That sounds really funny. I should check that out sometime.
And then never checks it out.
Yeah, so... Well, if and nuts was candy and nuts. If and butts candy.
Well, we'll stop hate fucking our audience here again,
Love you.
like always.
Especially if you're from
but then-
Australia, because I'm not Michael, who fucking hates Australians.
Hey, Michael, try on your Irish accent and say Liam for me.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
All right, then.
I almost tried and I no.
Do it, you cunt.
Liam.
Leo.
So, also,
That's a
if you're
Scottish
enjoying... Dear God. Nostrovia. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on the episodes here, we also have sort of a post-coital moment of convalescence with one another, which is Disinformed After Dark, that you can find every Friday on the Tubes of You as well. Also 10 a.m. Mountain Time, where we just kind of decompress, chat about odd little moments of ephemera that occurred on the episode, and then whip in the occasional Chuck Klosterman's hypothetical in order to keep things scintillating and interesting for all of you listeners.
Yeah, it's kind of like the regular show, but after dark.
And less profane language for those of you who are not like Phineas Gage and cannot be accepted into polite society.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I think that is going to give us a glorious little bit of outro. Michael, thank you as always for all of your contributions to the episode, and they were 5 raucous minutes of conversation, and I appreciate that.
And how? I look forward to speaking with you for 5 minutes again.
Why would you tease something like that and then ask me to cut it?
Every
I
wobbleless
just don't-
week.
I just don't understand.
Cut, cut, cut. Here's the young as back when they was young and appreciative. Now,
Oh, I guess I can do a teaser for
shit.
next week
Ooh, I'm interested.
because John doesn't like doing work and writing his own episodes.
I don't.
Exactly. I'm going to jump into, and since both of you have done an episode on Satanism, I figured I would do an episode myself. But since there isn't a third sect of Satanism that I can use,
Nothing science related. Yeah.
I decided to do the satanic ritual abuse or the 80s satanic panic.
Oh,
which will be fun.
Fair fun.
The follow-up record
Yes.
from Blood Lube, as I recall.
Yeah, it's 8 ounces of pus followed
After
by
8 ounces of
satanic
pus,
panic.
yeah. Uh-huh. And Gushing Grannies is not featured in that one, unfortunately.
But they are featured on 8 ounces of pus.
They are, because you can't help it. It's the only way they're going to get wet anyway. So, but we also do want to occasionally have the quote-unquote loose fit on the fly episodes to allow a little decompression period for you as well, Michael. So, at some point this month.
Yeah, we're happy to do that. Or we've talked about, being able to
Having
have
guests on.
So even if we
Yes.
just wanted to have Christian Stitcher back, since she's going to be recurring, we could bring her in. Or I don't know.
Our good friend at Book Invasion, Scott, is excited to get on at some point as well. I
Oh.
just need to coordinate because he's got youngins that he's rearing, and so we've got to figure out a good schedule. But yes,
Get Scott in
he
here.
is,
I haven't talked to Scott in a long
he's-
time.
Yeah, shoot.
It's been a hot minute, so we're looking forward to pulling him in as well. So we have options. There are plenty of folks just waiting in the wings.
Okay, well then let's do that so I can make this a
Let's
really
make
good
the
episode.
guest episodes until Courtney tells us that she's ready to present, because there is a topic that she is allegedly writing for us. She is writing an episode. Until that episode, I think anytime we have a guest on, we'll just keep it conversational.
Indeed.
That's fair. She did call dibs.
Yep. Well, daddies that aren't my daddies.
We're going to get to sign you off for the podcast that God cucked. From our group of tiny wangers. This is
Amen.
the Disinformed Podcast. I am Shane.
Thanks, Wayne. I'm John.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, Sean, and I'm Michael.
And for all of you other individuals who are apparently audibly anemic, so long and good night. Well, Dong, it's all right.
So dong and all right.